set up boundaries and said, love doesn't hurt. I had to get to the point where I was ready to go. When you wonder why people stay in abusive relationships for years, it's they're not ready to go. It is a scary world out there when you have, in a dysfunctional or functional relationship, have surrounded yourself by support, and that's all you know. You know, I had to get to the point where something came to me and said, well, what if you had to leave your daughter in the house by herself to go get help? Would you do it? Leave my daughter in the house by herself with him? What? You crazy? Well, damn it, if the day didn't come where I had to make that choice. I had to make the choice. You know, I chose to understand my values. I chose to place my faith someplace higher than what I knew. And I was the hell up out of it. And when I mean that quite literally. I mean, I had to, while he's on the other side of the room, step back. Step back, Mama. Step back. Click. That was a dead bolt. Step forward. Step back. Click. That was the bottom line. Step forward. Somebody in the house actually broke some mirrors because she was mad as hell about what was going on. Because that was the first time she saw it. That was a bad time for me. I'm not a hero. My daughter could have died that night. I could have died that night. But I had to understand what my value was. I had to understand that a healthy relationship is what I was not in. And I had to know what did I want to do for myself. I was college educated, with a home, with a daughter who was doing well. It can happen to you. It can happen to people you know.
Now when you look back on your situation, what were some of the warning signs? You know what, I'm about to do.
Very good. Honestly, I dated this individual for a year before there was even any abuse. I dated this individual for a year. The first time it happened was New Year's Eve after I came home from church. The warning signs weren't there in the first year. After the second year, I recognized that he had mood swings, that he self-medicated with alcohol and weed, that his sex drive was a little out of control. It's bipolar. And I say that to say you guys have to understand that I'm saying mental health really comes into play. You have to know your values. You have to know your significant other. You have to know their history. Mental health comes into play because when people say, oh, you acting crazy, it really could be just that. Like I said, we counsel hundreds of people who have mental health disorders that were only diagnosed after they committed their crime of abuse. After they committed their crime of murder. The warning signs were there, and I was a social worker. But you know what I did? I put my cape on. I could help him. Because I love him. Love doesn't hurt, and it won't help. You know, I had to get to that point. You know, I talked to my daughter about sharing. I said, you ready? That's why I said, you ready. Because, you know, for her, you can't forget that, you know, I couldn't forget that even though I was receiving the physical part of it, that she was still receiving the mental part. The fact that I was still her mother, I was unhappy. And to think that she would go unaffected by this would be totally irresponsible and ignorant on my part. Now, I had the fortune to understanding that I was familiar with social work, I was familiar with the ropes, so I knew how to get the information. You know, but you have to look for your partner's warning signs. You have to understand his family history or her family history. You know, some things just don't go away. And relationships are work. Conscious work that you do every day. Like you get up and get dressed and go to work and you perform your duties at your job. You're going to have to perform your duties in a relationship. So that way, when you compromise and you communicate and you cultivate, it's not going to lead to that violent stuff. And if you do all those things and it still leads to that, you do not have a healthy relationship. Period. You know, am I one that says people can change? I'm sure. That individual I talked about, my change. My concern was about my daughter's change and not ignoring the fact that she went along the same ride with me. And for her, it was just as intense. You know, so when we look at domestic violence, when we look at dating violence, we can't look at it as though it's not going to happen to us, as though it's not going to happen to anyone else, you know, and that children of all ages aren't affected by it. You know, whether it's verbal, physical, or mental, they pick up those habits. How many of you guys take a healing process, regardless of which route you use, but I have to emphasize that mental health should not be something that's foreign. It shouldn't be something that you guys see as like, I don't need it. You know, you guys, well, that's why CouchTime.net was established, is because we all have a little. CouchTime.net was designed so that way, you know, counseling doesn't have to be so formal. You know, the fact that we all need it, especially young, old, whatever, African American and black, people of color. We look at mental health and we say we want a pastor pray for them, which is great, regardless of your religion. Please do not forget that there may be other treatment, other things that are actually needed. I know you guys probably thinking, comments?